Have you ever read a poem and thought, I have no idea what the poet is talking about? Or maybe you interpreted it one way, and then everyone else in the room had a completely different take? Here's the thing. Poetry isn't a trap. It's a puzzle. And guess what? Sometimes there's more than one way to solve it. Some poems are open to different interpretations, and that's okay. But if you're one of those people who really struggles to figure out what a poem is trying to say, don't panic. I've got a method that can help. You just have to stay calm. CALM is an acronym that gives you a simple structure for breaking down any poem. It stands for Context, Annotate, Language, and Meaning. And we're going to use it today to analyze The Hero by Siegfried Sassoon, a short World War I poem that isn't quite what it seems at first. Let's get started, and stay calm. Let's start with the C in calm, context. Understanding the time, place, and person behind a poem gives you a huge advantage when trying to make sense of it. The Hero was written during World War I, a time when young men were encouraged, even pressured, to enlist and fight for their country. Back then, war was often seen as glorious. Dying in battle was considered noble, heroic, even romantic, especially if you were fighting for your country. But the reality was very different. World War I was brutal. Soldiers died in trenches, in mud, under constant shell fire. Many of them terrified, young, and far from home. When a soldier died, a letter would be sent to their family. But those letters didn't always tell the truth. They were written to comfort, not to describe the horror. They often said things like, "He died instantly. He died bravely. He died with honor." And that's where this poem begins, with a letter and a lie. The poet, Siegfried Sassoon, wasn't just guessing what war was like. He served as a soldier. He saw the horror firsthand, and he became known for writing anti-war poetry that exposed the ugly truth behind the noble story. Keep that in mind, because The Hero is not a tribute, it's a reality check. Now, let's move to the A in calm, annotate. This is where we break the poem down one stanza at a time and simply ask, what's happening here? We're not interpreting just yet. We're focusing on the literal events in each stanza. Stanza 1, Jack fell as he'd have wished, the mother said, and folded up the letter that she'd read. The colonel writes so nicely. Something broke in the tired voice that quavered to a choke. She half looked up. We mothers are so proud of our dead soldiers. Then her face was bowed. This stanza shows a mother reacting to news of her son's death in war. She repeats the line from the letter. Jack fell as he'd have wished, and says the colonel writes so nicely. She's trying to stay strong and composed, but her voice falters. Despite her grief, she says she's proud, just like society expects. She bows her head, overcome with emotion. Stanza 2. Quietly, the brother officer went out. He'd told the poor old dear some gallant lies that she would nourish all her days, no doubt. For while he coughed and mumbled, her weak eyes had shone with gentle triumph, brimmed with joy, because he'd been so brave, her glorious boy. Here, the perspective shifts to the officer who delivered the message. We find out that what he told her about Jack dying bravely wasn't true. He describes them as gallant lies, comforting, noble-sounding fabrications. The mother believes every word, and it brings her pride and comfort. Her eyes had shone with gentle triumph and brimmed with joy. She sees Jack as a hero, her glorious boy. But the officer knows the truth, and we're left to question what really happened. Stanza 3. He thought how Jack, cold-footed, useless swine, had panicked down the trench that night the mine went up at Wicked Corner. How he'd tried to get sent home and how, at last, he died, blown to small bits. And no one seemed to care, except that lonely woman with white hair. Here we finally learn what really happened. The officer reflects, privately, on the truth. Jack wasn't brave. He was terrified. He tried to get sent home, and he died in an explosion, blown to pieces. No one around him seemed to care, except his mother, who now believes a lie. Now, for the L in calm. Language. This is where we look at how the poet uses tone word choice and poetic techniques like rhyme and structure to shape the reader's understanding. Let's look at the essentials. Tone and word choice. The mother's tone is formal and composed. She repeats the line, "Jack fell as he'd have wished," and says, "The Colonel writes so nicely." These phrases sound polite, controlled, almost rehearsed, like she's clinging to what society expects her to feel. Now contrast that with the officer's private thoughts in the final stanza. Cold-footed, useless swine. Harsh, bitter language. It's brutally honest and shows contempt, not pride. This sharp contrast in tone shows us that the truth and the story told to the mother are very different. Rhyme and structure. The poem uses a regular rhyme scheme, rhyming couplets throughout. That neat, controlled structure mirrors the neat version of events the officer gives the mother. But the content, especially in the final stanza, completely disrupts that order. This contrast between form and meaning helps highlight the lie. Poetic devices. Alliteration, cold-footed, useless swine, adds force and emphasis. Juxtaposition between the officer's comforting words and harsh inner thoughts. Irony, the title, "The Hero," is completely undercut by the final truth. In short, Sassoon uses polite, heroic language to show what society wants to believe, and raw, bitter language to show what he believes actually happened. The truth hides beneath the tone. Now we come to the M in calm. Meaning. This is where we step back and ask, what is the poem really saying? What message does the poet want us to take away? On the surface, the hero might seem like a tribute to a fallen soldier. But by the final stanza, we realize it's deeply ironic. Jack wasn't a hero. He was terrified. He tried to get sent home. And he died in fear, not glory. The officer lies to Jack's mother, and not just to spare her feelings. That lie is part of something bigger. Siegfried Sassoon was openly anti-war. He fought in World War I, but became deeply critical of the way war was romanticized and justified through propaganda. He's not just exposing one lie told to one grieving mother. He's exposing a system where men are described as heroes, even when they die in fear, to keep the idea of war looking noble. It's not just comfort, it's control, a way to keep the myth of glory alive. And the enlistment numbers up. Sassoon's message is clear. The truth about war is messy, tragic, and often hidden. And calling every death heroic doesn't honor the dead. It protects the war machine. When you stay calm, context. Annotate, language. Meaning, you can see beyond the words and uncover the real story a poem is telling, even when that story hurts. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. There are more poetry analysis videos coming soon, and with the calm method, you'll be ready for any poem that comes your way. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay curious, stay sharp, and stay calm.